Welcome everybody. Hope you all got to see a little bit behind the scenes when we put on these GoToWebinar trainings. It takes obviously a village, so they're not as easy as just I'm going to log on and hear Sara talk brilliantly about special claims for 90 minutes. There's stuff that goes into it. So sorry for that. We started a little bit early, so you got to see that in action. But welcome. So glad you guys could join us today. Many apologies for having to push this training back a week. I know all of us, us included, have full calendars and schedules, and it can be difficult to rearrange your schedule quickly, but thank you for doing so and joining us live today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jacqueline Rathbun, and I serve KHRC as the Director of Contract Administration. The training session you are about to attend is on Section 8 Special Claims, presented by our lead finance officer, Sara Hall. I know many of you on the call have worked closely with Sara on all your Section 8 finance related tasks, as well as the other members of our finance team, Wasini Hicks, Liz Gouge, and our newest member, Cole Percival. They're all PBCA finance officers and are available to help process all your rent adjustments, special claims that you'll learn about today, contract renewals, and vouchers. I know those of you who have attended our KHRC Kansas Housing Conference or any of our previous trainings know this stuff by heart, but I'm still going to go over it just in case we have anybody new. Some technology tips. Of course, right now you are in listen-only mode to limit any distractions during Sara's presentation. All your mics have been muted and cameras are turned off. We've tested the sound and visuals, as you saw, on our end, so we're good to go. So if you're having issues seeing us or hearing us, please check your computer settings and speakers and things like that. We hope you have questions during Sara's presentation. So if you do, you won't be able to unmute yourself to ask them, but there is a questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel. So there'll be several periods throughout the presentation where we'll stop and ask for questions. So if I don't answer it through a typed message or interrupt Sara with the question, we'll get to it when we have those breaks in her presentation. So we encourage questions, just make sure you put them in the question control panel. We also have several documents for your reference during the presentation and for after when you're completing your special claim. You should have received those handouts in the 24-hour reminder email that went out yesterday, and then the 1-hour reminder email that went out this morning. But if you were unable to open those or access those, Abby did graciously upload those to the handouts feature on the control panel as well. So they're there now for your reference. And I think that's all I've got. So without further ado, we'll have Sara take over for now. And thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. I guess just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I'm assuming so. Jackie, interrupt me if the audio is out for some reason. So thank you so much for your flexibility and our rescheduling of this training. Very much appreciate that. Last week I was kind of out. I'm much better now, have a little bit of a lingering cough, so may need to shut my camera off for just a moment during a question section, clear my throat, take a drink of water. So I appreciate your patience with me through this training. I'm hoping that you can see my screen. This training will be Special Claims 101. I know a lot of you are very familiar with this process and submit claims on a regular basis. And some of you may be brand new to this. So I'm hoping that this training is going to help on both sides and give you lots of information to help you submit a complete special claim. So I need to move something off of my screen real fast. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The topics that we're going to cover today are, we'll briefly discuss the 4 types of special claims, and then 2 of those types are going to be discussed in detail, and those are vacancy claims and damage and unpaid rent claims. We'll talk about the submission procedures and processing timeline, complete claims, and incomplete claims, and I'll also touch on how to appeal a claim as well. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to request payment for claims that are approved. All right, and as Jackie mentioned, we do have some handouts for you. Those are included in the emails that you received, and then also here available on our documents. Those handouts I'm going to reference throughout the training, and if you see this little moving checkboard with a green check mark, that means that this whatever I'm talking about has a handout included. So this is the list of those handouts. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the types of special claims. There's two here that are highlighted on the screen. These are the two that we're going to talk about in detail. So special claims for vacancy loss after rent up. Those are special claims for the eligible programs that can submit these claims are listed below here, eligible programs. So you can see Section 8. That's specifically the requirements that we're going to talk about today. But there are other programs that are eligible to submit these type of claims. These claims, HUD recognizes that property owners experience vacancy for a variety of reasons that are beyond your control. And so they have created the special claim process as a way to recoup some of that money lost for vacancy. The maximum amount of claim that you can receive is 80% of the contract rent for a maximum of 60 days. The other type of claim we're going to talk about in detail today are special claims for unpaid rent, tenant damages, and other charges. And these claims, as you all know, in this business, sometimes our tenants are not very nice to the units that they live in. And so at the time of their move out, there are a lot of damages. Some have unpaid rent or other charges. And so this is a way, again, for property owners to recoup some of that money. We will talk about this in detail as well. The two types of claims that I'm going to very briefly touch on, and that's just at this moment here, are special claims for vacancy loss during rent up and special claims for debt service vacancy payments. I'm not going to discuss these two claims. You can see the eligible programs here for those that can submit these types. If you have questions about these types of claims, you are welcome to reach out after this training, and I can help you know how to submit those and who to contact. All right, we're going to jump into vacancy claims. I think actually before I do that, real quickly though, Jackie, are there any questions right off the bat before we jump in?
Not in regards to the good information that you're going to supply, so
Okay.
nothing yet.
Okay.
I will say, just in case some people might have this question that they were thinking it but didn't ask, the PowerPoint will not be available, but if technology allows, we will be recording this, and then that recording will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel within the next 10 to 14 days. But the PowerPoint, unfortunately, will not.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jackie. Okay, special claims for vacancy after rent up. As I mentioned just a moment ago, the maximum claim amount for these types are 80% of your contract rent for up to 60 days. And so I know that sometimes we have vacant units that go beyond that 60-day mark, but HUD is going to cap your special claim at 60 days. And then if the 80% of the contract rent at the time. We'll talk about that a little bit further on. Okay, like I said, we are going to only talk about the requirements for the Section 8 program. However, these types of special claims, these programs here are also eligible to submit vacancy claims. Some of the other eligibility requirements: move-out data has to be submitted to TRACS. The former tenant was receiving assistance at the time of move-out. The unit is in decent, safe, and sanitary condition. The owner agent has taken all feasible actions to fill the vacancy. That's one of HUD's kind of big things. If you're not trying to fill this vacancy, why would they want to pay you for that vacancy? So there's some certain requirements that you have to meet to show that you're trying to fill the vacancy. You can't reject applicants except for good cause. And the owner agent has to certify they've not caused that vacancy by violating the lease, the contract, or any applicable law. They also have to comply with all HUD requirements on termination of tenancy. If you have any questions about these eligibility requirements, type them in your box, in the chat box, but a lot of these issues we're going to talk about further on. Here's a list of all required documents that you have to submit with your vacancy claim. There's a checklist, HUD Forms, Tracks Report, 50059, Proof of Security Deposit Collection, Security Deposit Disposition, Vacancy Reconditioning Log, Documentation of Death, Waiting List or Advertising Efforts. We're going to talk about all of these in detail. Now, there may be additional requirements that could arise depending on the individual claim submission. So there may be some things that you've experienced in a special claim that you've submitted that we don't talk about here today. Feel free to ask that question and we'll definitely get that answered for you. The first thing we'll talk about in detail is the owner agent checklist. This is available as a handout. And we very much highly encourage you to use the checklist that we've created. We've tried really hard to make sure that that checklist includes everything that you will need for a special claim submission, a complete one. It is required as part of your submission. Now, there is a checklist available that HUD has created. You can use that, but I highly recommend using ours. The checklist that HUD has available does not include all of the requirements. You'll want to make sure that you complete all of that information at the top of that checklist and read every box very carefully to make sure that it does or does not apply to your submission. All right, this is, I'm hoping my link is going to work. Yeah. Don't know if it is. This is supposed to be a link. This is a copy of that checklist that you have. So this information at the top right here. Sorry about that. Okay, information at the top here. Please fill that information out. And then you'll read each one of these items on this checklist, check it if it applies, and then you'll either include that in your submission or complete it on one of the HUD forms that's required. So we're going to go through this checklist so that you know exactly what each of these items means. All right, so one of the first things that's on that checklist are your required HUD forms. There are 2 HUD forms that are required as part of a complete submission. The first one, and I'm not going to probably refer to these by their number, but the first one is 52670A Part 2. This HUD form I'm going to refer to as the Special Claims Schedule. All information needs to be on this HUD form, but it's more of a summary. The details will not be on, of the individual unit will not be included on this form. This form is used for both vacancy and damage and unpaid rent claims. You'll need to sign and date, and then of course it has to be submitted with your claim. I'm going to open this form up so that you can see here in just a moment. The second HUD form that is required as part of a complete submission is the 52671C. This is the specific HUD form for regular vacancy claims. You will complete Part A only, and that's the top half. Part B is for property disposition properties. If you have a question about whether you are one or if you should complete that form, reach out to me later after this training. I can tell you a very small handful of our properties are property disposition. So more than likely, you'll just complete Part A and you'll be just fine. I'm going to open up, I'm hoping. All right, it's supposed to be a link, so sorry about that. Not sure.
There I am. Sarah, not to bogart, but if you want, I think you could, if you click into your handouts and want to pull it, drag it over to C2, those are uploaded. I don't know if that's
okay. I don't know how I had these linked, guys. Give me just a minute and see. I don't know. Shoot. All right. I'm not sure what to do. Let's see if this works. I don't think so. try one more thing. Can you see this HUD form here on my screen?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, this is the special claims schedule form. This form is required for all special claims and both vacancy and damage unpaid rent. So of course you're going to fill just about every form that you complete. You're going to fill in your property information, your contract number, and then in box 1 is the last name of the head of household in the unit that you're submitting this special claim for. Box 2, you're going to put the unit number. And then you're going to tell us what type of claim you're submitting. So unpaid rent would go in box 3. Tenant damages is going to go in box 4. And then regular vacancy is what the rest of your vacancy claims are going to be. And so that's going to be in box 6. You will total up the amount for each of those claims. You can include more than one unit on here, and you will total it up here at the bottom. Excuse me. And make sure you sign and date both of these HUD forms. The next HUD form is your special claims for regular vacancies. I'm going to talk briefly about this. Again, fill in the top information for your property, and then you're going to put in your vacated tenant's name. So the first and last name will go here, and your unit number that this claim is for. Box 1 will be the day your tenant moved out. Box 2 is the number of days that it took for you to make this unit ready. We'll talk more about that later on. Box 3 is going to be the date that this unit is ready for occupancy. Box 4, you'll do a little bit of math and you'll take box 3 plus 59 days. Box 5 is going to be the date that the unit was re-rented. Now, an important note about this box, sometimes we have vacant units beyond 60 days. Go ahead and put in whatever date that a tenant moved into that unit, even if it was past 60 days. Box 6 is going to cap you at the 60-day mark. The rest, 7 through 13, we'll do some math. Actually, box 7, you'll enter the contract rent at the time of your tenant's move out. And then the rest of these are going to be a little bit of math. So we'll reference this form throughout the training. Let me see if I can get back to my presentation though. Okay.
Yep, you're good.
All right. Let's see. Maybe, I know you can see it, but I've got, okay, there we go. Okay, and again, there's these are included in your handouts, these HUD forms. All right, any questions so far?
Yes, we have a couple.
What's next? Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yes, we have a couple good ones. So one, I like this question, and I know there's some HUD people on this call now. So there's no offense, but Angela asked, are these the most up-to-date HUD forms? The expiration date is June 2016. Yes, they are. So no offense to HUD, but yes, as you know, sometimes HUD takes them a while to get their forms and checklists updated. That's why Sarah stressed that that HUD, yes, has a template checklist that you can use, but it's also outdated. So we prefer that you use ours that has everything that you need to have a successful submission for a special claim. But those are the most up to date. Another good question from Debbie, can you list more than one unit on the 5270A Part 2, the schedule? Because she's had claims that returned asking for each unit.
The schedule form?
The special claim schedule.
Yes, so you can list more than one claim on the schedule form. What's important is that if you do have more than one on the schedule form, each unit must include also the special claim for regular vacancy, your 52671C. And then each one of those must include the schedule as well. So the schedule can include more than one claim, but each claim will need to be submitted with the schedule and the regular vacancy form. Hoping that answered your question. If not, Jackie, let me know.
I think just to piggyback. So when you're uploading to Procorum your special claim, we sometimes get the special claim schedule, that 526070A Part 2, with a list of maybe 5 property or 5 units that you're going to submit a special claim for. But we want those uploaded separately. So you can have all 5 in one schedule, but we need each claim with the special claim, regular vacancy, and the full claim information about that specific unit in each individual claim, rather than one large PDF submission upload with all 5 claims in one delivery package, if that makes sense. So each individual special claims needs to be separate, but you can list all 5 or however many you're going to be uploading for us to review on the special claims schedule, that first HUD form. I hope that answered your question, Debbie.
Any other questions?
Yes, we have another one from Leanne. What date do I put if the unit is not rented past the 60 days, such if the unit is vacant for 4 months? Do I submit at the time or just after the 60 days of vacancy?
Okay, say that one more time.
Okay, sorry. What date do I need to put in if the unit has not been rented in the last 60 days? I'm guessing on this form.
So I wonder if she's referring to box 5 here, the date the unit was re-rented. Am I understanding
Yes.
that the question is if it has not been re-rented, what date
Yes.
is put in there? The answer is if it's not re-rented, there's no date that you can put in there. So that will be left blank. If you have submitted your claim to us and 60 days has elapsed, then you'll have a 60-day claim. But if that 60 days hasn't passed yet, since it's been vacant, I suggest you wait so that you can take advantage of the full 60 days that HUD will pay you for. Hopefully that answered the question.
I think that's what I got. I think so. Leanne, let us know. Obviously, post a message in the question box if that answered. Yes, it did. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
We have another question. Why do you approve the claims separately with different approval numbers when there is more than one unit on the 52670A form?
We process each unit separately. And so the way that we log each claim as it comes into us is by unit number, not by the total submitted claims, and we process them each individually. And so as we're looking at your claim submission, there's a set of processing documents that our staff use for each unit number, and so we have to approve each unit number that comes in.
So when I said you could put all of the 5 units that you're submitting at once on that special claim schedule, the 526070A Part 2, kind of think of that as the cover sheet, I guess, if for all the claims, but they all have to be submitted separately because each claim is assigned to the unit, and that's how we'll approve them, and how EPS, when you get your approval or amended approval letter, EPS will process those by units. That's why we need them separately. But you can put it as a cover sheet if you want it, if you put all your claims on that one form. Okay, great questions. I haven't seen any pop up. So I think we can move on to Trax reports, if you're ready.
Okay. All right, Trax reports. These are required. You have to submit a Trax report with your submission. It will be returned to you guaranteed if those Trax reports are not included. Now, I know that we've had some people come to us and say I don't have access to Trax, which you may not, but if you want to submit a special claim, you need to find someone in your organization that does have access to Trax and have them print out this form for you and include it in your submission. We use these Trax reports for several reasons. We're going to verify the move out date of your former tenant, and that's going to be the move out date reported in box 1. We're going to use this to verify the move in date for the new tenant. That'll be box 5. If you don't have a new tenant in there, this was a question from before, leave that box blank. If there's nobody moved in, there's no date of move-in, so that can be left blank. We're also going to look to see if you have tenants that have transferred. we'll use that TRAX report to verify that information as well. Now, keep in mind that the move-in and move-out report will only show your move-ins and move-outs. If you do have a tenant who's transferred either in or out, you'll need to print off the certification query report, and that's the only one that we'll be able to see of the transfer date. If I'm going to kind of jump back to that question we had, if you don't have anybody new in that tenant, there's no move-in date, this TRAX report is also going to, we're also going to use that to verify that there hasn't been a move-in. So please also provide us a current TRAX report printout when you submit your special claim for units who have not had a new tenant move in. And again, you'll see kind of throughout this training there, we've got some little common mistake little icons here, and so this is a common one we see. Those TRAX reports are missing. We cannot take your software printout, and so we've had some submissions and some owner agents ask us, well, here's my move-in, I've printed it out with my software, and that's great, but it's not a TRAX report. We have to have the TRAX report. Okay, and I'm hoping that the majority of you are familiar with what these look like. This is an example of a move-in and move-out report, so you can see clearly the unit number, and then whether it's a move-in or a move-out. That's what we're looking for. And then I've blacked out some of that information, but your contract number would appear up here. Date range, we're going to look at that. And then you're going to have the TRAX certification history report. So this is going to tell us your transfers into or out of the units. And so I've highlighted an example of a unit transfer here. Any questions? That was much shorter, but any questions about TRAX reports and those requirements?
We did have a couple questions come in more regarding the 2 HUD forms,
Okay.
but I think I think some of them will tie into TRAX. So there is one. So Penny is asking, we only complete the upper portion, Part A, and the special claim schedule together. I think yes, you'll need both of those forms completed together.
The schedule form
Mm-hmm.
and the special claim for regular vacancy, those need to be submitted together. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
question? Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we only complete the upper portion of the Part A.
Part A, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So then, yeah, this line, I don't know if you guys can see it, but this line right here, that's where where you will stop. However, don't forget that you have to sign and date it at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sign, date, and yeah, sign it. Yeah. Great. And then Stacy has a good question. If your unit is only vacant for 30 days, are you able to submit a claim for 60?
No.
No.
Because it's not vacant for 60. Once a tenant moves in, then the vacancy ends. And so you're only allowed to get compensation for the time that unit is vacant.
Hence why we asked for that TRAX move in, move out report, so we can see to make sure if you've accidentally left that date unit was re-rented blank, we can verify on your TRAX report.
And honestly, you wouldn't want to get paid a vacancy claim for days it wasn't vacant, because you're going to get your full contract rent if you have a tenant in there. Now, that'll be a combination of subsidy versus what the tenant pays, but your vacancy claims, special claim, you're only going to get 80% of that. So it really wouldn't do you any benefit to ask for a claim for days that it wasn't vacant. Awesome. Any other questions?
Audience, any more questions? I don't have any popping up, but we'll keep going, and if they are, I'll catch you on the next one.
All right, so we're going to talk about security deposit requirements, collection, and disposition. So there's several slides here, and I know that there may be some questions about this topic. So hopefully I answer those for you, and if I don't, there'll be another spot here at the end of this section for questions. Security deposit requirement. So each property has an amount of security deposit that you're required to collect. And so we're going to verify that amount by using the 50059. And we're looking at your total tenant payment on that form. And that's we have a sheet that we're going to compare each individual property. What is your requirement? What did you collect for security deposit? Please provide both pages of that 5-9 form. We have to have the move-in 5-9. So make sure that when you're collecting your documents to prepare for submission, that you're collecting the move-in 5-9 for your former tenant at their original move-in. So, and I recognize that some properties have had tenants in there for a long time. So yes, you're going to have to go back in their file and find the original 5-9 form when they first moved into that unit. That's what you need to provide to us. We're looking at the total tenant payment at the time of move-in. Transfers can get a little bit tricky. So if you have, or if the former tenant transferred into the unit that you're submitting the special claim for, you still have to provide the original 5-9 and documentation that that security deposit transferred with that tenant. If the former tenant transferred into a different unit instead of moving out completely, then you still need to provide the original 5-9. We also need the unit transfer 5-9 and documentation showing that that deposit transferred with the tenant. I have an example on the next page that I'm hoping is going to bring all of this together for you. So in our first example, this does not include a transfer. These are pretty simple. So I'm using myself as an example here. So I moved into Unit 101 on 7/10/81, and then I moved out of Unit 101 on January 30th of 2002. Now you're submitting a special claim for Unit 101. What do you provide? The original 5-9 for me when I moved into Unit 101. That's probably the most cut and dry example. Okay, in our second example, I am moving into Unit 101, again on 7/10/1981. Then I'm transferring into Unit 102 on January 30th, 2002. You as an owner agent are now going to submit a special claim for Unit 101. I'm out of there, but I'm still in the building. I've just transferred to Unit 102. But now Unit 101 is vacant. So you're going to file a special claim. The owner agent must provide the move-in 5-9 for Unit 101. I also need the unit transfer 5-9 for Unit 102. And I want the tenant ledger showing that the security deposit that you collected from me in Unit 101 is transferred to Unit 102. Third example, I moved in again, Unit 101 on 7/10/81, transferred to Unit 102 on January 30th. Then I moved out of 102 on July 28th. Now you as an owner agent are going to file a special claim for Unit 102 because I'm out of there now. That one is now vacant. So the requirements are going to be the same as in the second example. You're going to need to provide a move-in 5-9 for Unit 101, the unit transfer 5-9 for Unit 102, and the tenant ledger showing the security deposit transferred from Unit 101 to 102. Okay, and I'm sure that there are questions, but I'm going to keep going a couple more slides before I break. Okay, so now that you've provided that 5-9, we can verify the amount of security deposit that was required by you to collect. But now you need to show us that you've actually collected that money. How much did you actually collect? So there are 3 different documents that you can provide to show that. You do not have to provide all 3 of these. It's your choice. You can provide the tenant ledger, you can provide a receipt, or the original lease. If you're providing, well, honestly, if you're providing any of these documents, make sure they clearly identify the amount of security deposit that was collected, your tenant name, and the unit number. All right. And finally, the security deposit disposition. We need to know what happened to that money when the tenant has moved out or transferred. So one important thing to note for special claim purposes only, that if the tenant forfeits their security deposit because they didn't give you 30-day notice, that amount that was forfeited has to be reported on line 11 of your 52671C. That's your special claim for regular vacancy form. That is often missed. So if you keep their security deposit because they did not give you 30-day notice, fine, but you have to include that amount on line 11 of your form. It may or may not affect the end result of your claim, but it still needs to be reported on the HUD form. For unit transfers, now I recognize that if you have a tenant who's transferring into another unit, you are probably not going to have a disposition, and that's fine. So all we need to see is that security deposit transferred with them. And so I mentioned that in the previous slide. Just give us the ledger and show us that that money has now was at one unit and now is at the other unit. Now we'll take some questions. So I'm anticipating a few on the security deposit.
We have some.
Okay.
So Paige has a good question. What if there is an issue with locating the original move-in 50059, such as fire, theft, or a previous management company that didn't keep good track of it? What do they do?
That has happened before. Let us know. So if you're ready to submit a claim and you know that you need that original 5-9 form and you go to the file and it's not there. So figure out, if you can, what happened to it. And then when you're ready to submit your claim, you need to provide an explanation as to why it's missing. So tell us why it's missing. And then in replace of that, you can provide that original lease instead of that 5-9. Because if it's not there, it's not there. I mean, you can't just pull it out of thin air. So you can provide the original lease if you can't locate the 5-9, but you will need to let us know, like, okay, we've looked for it, we can't find it, this is what we think happened to it. So we know that you've looked and tried and it's just can't find it.
And just for a compliance shout out from it, that could be a finding if that's in an MOR review. So just make sure, just like Sarah said, we'll need to know why. We'll need to know why. That should be already noted in the tenant file if it's not in there. So hopefully you can just find that in the file when you're submitting the special claim. Another question. We submit a request for transfer form instead of a UT59. Are you saying the request for transfer is no longer needed, but the UT or the unit transfer 59 will work instead?
Okay, so are we talking about the 5-9 when we're the 5-9 for the transfer? And what did she say she usually submits?
A request for transfer, which I've never seen. Yeah.
We need the request for transfer. So if your tenant is requesting to transfer into the unit that you're filing a special claim on, we need to see that because we need to know the reason for the transfer. But the UT59 is for us to verify that security deposit has came from unit 101 and it transferred with them to unit 102. So that's the reason for that unit transfer 59.
So I think just to clarify Alice's question, do you want the owner agents to submit both, or is the UT59 sufficient? Do they even have to show you the request, or would you assume that when processing it if the UT59 is included in the special claim package?
Well, the UT59 isn't going to tell us the reason for why. I don't think that it's going to tell us the reason why that tenant wanted to transfer. And the only time we need a reason is if your tenant is transferring into the vacated unit. So we want to know the reason for that transfer to make sure that you're not passing up someone on the regular waiting list. So typically it's for a reasonable accommodation. And that's why we want to see that reason. But if the tenant who is in the unit transferred out, I don't really care why they transferred out. I just care the reason why somebody transferred into that unit. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. If you're in doubt on what to send it all. If you have it easily available to send both those documents, just send them both in. And we'll just disregard what we don't need. It's better to do that than to not send in enough information.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then I think you're going to get into this, but there's a move out code in tracks that was 4, which means death. why are you wanting proof of death? And I think we're getting ahead of, Tim, good question, but we're going to get there.
Mhm.
We got another couple questions. If there was a correction to the move-in 50059 that changed the SD requirement, should the corrected move-in 5005 be submitted?
Yes. So
Yeah,
if at the
the
original
security
move-in,
deposit. Mhm.
yeah, if you needed a correction to that, then yes,
Yep.
provide that corrected move-in.
Deposit question. If a security deposit is not kept due to the tenant moving to an assisted living facility, does HUD expect us to retain the deposit if the 30 days is not provided? If a
Ask that.
deposit is not, if a deposit is not kept due to tenant moving to an assisted living, it's not, if the deposit is not kept due to a tenant moving to an assisted living facility, does HUD expect us to retain the deposit if 30 days is not provided?
I think what I'm understanding is you're choosing not to keep their security deposit. So maybe they didn't give you 30 days notice, but it's because they're moving to an assisted living facility. But you chose not to keep that. That's your choice. If you want to return that security deposit to them, then that's okay.
And that should be in, your management policies if the exception is for those who are moving to assisted living facility.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily have to retain that money. Will that affect the special claim?
No.
No. Yeah.
So the only time that security deposit comes into play on your claim amount is, let's say you provide us with this 5-9, move-in 5-9. We verify the amount of security deposit that was required to be collected. And then we look to see what you actually collected. And if the amount you actually collected was not the required amount, we're going to put the difference. That's going to count against you on your claim. Now, at the end of the day, after all the calculations are made, usually it's just a small amount and it doesn't make a difference to the bottom dollar. So that's one way that the security deposit can affect your claim. And then the second way is if they forfeited their security deposit, we also count for that on your HUD form. Sometimes that's a bigger amount, which could affect the ultimate number that's approved. Those are the two ways that it's going to affect your claim. If you keep your security deposit for other reasons, as long as they're reasons that you're allowed to keep that security deposit, that doesn't affect your claim. The only time it's going to is if it's forfeited because of the 30-day notice or lack of.
I have one more question that just popped in. If your unit is only vacant for 15 and or 45 days, you are still eligible to file a special claim.
Oh yeah, you can file a special claim for a unit that's been vacant for 1 day. So let's say it was ready to go on the 1st. You had a tenant move in there on the 3rd. So, and actually there's 2 vacant days. You can file a claim. It's not going to be a whole lot of money, but it's money that you were not getting before. So you can file a claim for a unit that's been vacant anywhere between 1 day and 60 days. And we encourage you to do that. It's money on the table, ready for you, as long as you provide us the information we're asking for.
Perfect.
Anything else?
That was the last one.
Okay.
On to reconditioning log.
Okay. Oops, let's see here. Okay, vacancy reconditioning log. This is another handout that you have available to you. I'm going to go straight down to the helpful tips. Please don't use the sample vacancy reconditioning log provided by HUD. It's just not as complete as the one that we have created for you. So please use the one either that we have available to you, or if your management company has created your own, that's okay too. I definitely would suggest comparing the one that you've created to the one that is available through KHRC. We've worked hard to make sure everything is included on there to make it very easy to follow and to know what information we're looking for. It's required for each unit. And it's a record of all your turnover functions and your make-ready dates. It needs to include the tenant's name and the unit number, and the move out or transfer date. And those are important because we're looking at making sure all the documents you submit are matching. So we want to make sure it says unit 101 all the way throughout the claim and it's the same tenant, same move out date. So these reconditioning logs are used to determine a couple of things. If the claim was submitted within the required time frame, we haven't mentioned that yet. And then also it's used to determine what the start date is for the vacancy. We've touched on the end date. So the end date is whenever you've got somebody who's moved into that unit, or the 60-day maximum. The start date, however, is going to be determined by this vacancy reconditioning log. So here's a little bit of an example. So the log must clearly identify the start and finish date of each turnover function and then any comments that you have. So your example, you've got somebody moving out of the unit on the 23rd, and then maintenance was in there making some repairs for a few days, the 24th through the 30th. And then the unit was cleaned on the 30th through the 1st, and then painting the 1st through the 2nd. And then you had someone come in there to make sure everything was done right and it looked good, was ready to rent. So that person was in there maybe the same day that they finished painting on the 2nd. What's important here is that your ready for occupancy date is the day after that final approval. So in this example, our ready for occupancy date is 10/3, not 10/2, because on 10/2, something was still happening in that unit. Two things in this case, the finished painting and then the final approval. This is a snip of the vacancy reconditioning log that we've created for you, and I'm going to pull up the whole thing here shortly. But at the very bottom, there's two dates that you'll need to complete. So the date the unit was approved for occupancy, so in this example, would be the 2nd. The date the unit is ready for occupancy, in this example, is going to be the 3rd. Now, the date the unit is ready for occupancy goes on box 3 of your 52671C. Can't remember what this, okay, I'm gonna go one back up. Okay, so this is one of the most common mistakes that we see in special claims submission, is that the date unit ready for occupancy, our owner agents report as the same day that something has happened in the unit. So that could be anything, and it could be the day that the manager approved it. It could be the last day of maintenance or cleaning or something. Your date that is ready for occupancy has to be at least one day after all of those things. And there may be some questions, I imagine, here. So a couple more slides and then we'll break for questions. You're going to total up all of the time that someone was doing something in that unit, whatever it is, and you're going to report that number of days that took you to repair, clean, get it ready on your HUD form for regular vacancies in box 2. And I believe that this may calculate for you on your software, but if not, you'll just total up your number of days that it took you to make that unit ready and include it on box 2. Now, if that number of days exceeds 10, you have to provide a reason why it took more than 10 days to make that unit ready. It seems kind of silly, however, and we're not picky on your reason. Your reason is your reason. On our vacancy reconditioning log, we have a space for this purpose. So that's one of the other reasons that we encourage you to use our form. Is it's all of the information that we're going to ask you for is right there, very easily for you to complete. So if the number of days that it took to make that unit ready is more than 10, let us know why. And that can be maintenance was just not available, or back order of items, or lots of vacant units and you just couldn't get to them very quickly, or staff on vacation or maintenance on vacation. Whatever your reason is, your reason, just let us know what that is. Now, if you've got some claims that have taken, beyond 30 days to make ready, we might look at that reason a little bit more closely. We want to make sure that you're not just letting vacant units sit there, then that's another reason, that's what HUD's looking at. So if they're going to pay you for this vacancy, we want to make sure you're trying everything you can to get it ready to rent. Okay, so that start date that I was talking about is the day the unit is ready for occupancy. That date goes on box 3 of the regular vacancy HUD form, and it has to be 1 day after all of your turnover functions have been completed, including your final walkthrough. An incorrect ready for occupancy date will cause an adjustment to your claim. And so we have experienced that a lot. I'm going to go back a slide here. Okay, so a common mistake that we see is in this example I have here, the ready for occupancy date reported by an owner agent was October 2nd. That's not right. So we make the adjustment internally. This isn't a reason why we would return a claim. We'll make that adjustment internally and report the ready for occupancy date as the 3rd. So that is a very common error that we see. So real important to check those dates. Okay, so here's a copy of that reconditioning log that is available for you. So of course, every form is going to have your general information at the top. Please complete all of this that applies. And then you're going to tell us the start and finish date of each thing that happened in that unit. Now, you may not have had to paint. There may not be any maintenance. That's fine. Just leave it blank or cross through it. Any comments that you think are necessary that we should know, just include it in there. We're not asking for an essay or even multiple sentences. Just tell us something about what it is that was happening. At the very bottom, you're going to see the space for justification for turnover taking more than 10 days. If you do not include a reason, we will return this claim to you. And then the very bottom, you've got the 2 dates. So your unit approved date and then the unit ready for occupancy date. Questions?
I don't have any questions.
Really?
I know. I thought we'd get several for this part.
I love questions. I'm disappointed. I just assumed that there'd be some questions on that. Okay, if there are no questions, that's not a problem. We will keep going.
Okay.
However, if you think of something later on, go ahead and type it in, and at the very end, we'll take final questions as well.
Great.
So kind of looking at the time, so we're coming up on an hour, and actually we've got quite a bit left. So we're gonna move right along. All right, we're gonna talk about the waiting list and advertising. So if HUD's gonna pay you for a vacant unit, they wanna make sure that you're doing everything you can to fill that vacancy. That's the reason behind the waiting list and advertising requirement. We are looking at that waiting list to make sure that there are not tenants on that waiting list that you've passed up that you shouldn't have. We want to see if you picked a tenant on that waiting list that their name is on there. So it's nice if you circle their name, highlight it for us. Thank you for those that do that. The advertising is only needed if your property does not have a waiting list. And so this is, again, if you don't have a waiting list and you've got a vacant unit, HUD wants to know that you're trying to fill it. So send us whatever type of advertising that your property does. That can be newspapers, it can be just a flyer, can be an internet listing, Facebook, or whatever, wherever you market. Send us some copies of that. Transfers. If a tenant transfers into the unit that you've submitted a claim for, you also have to provide that transfer waiting list if you have one. And then this is what we talked about earlier. We need a reason for that transfer. So we're looking to make sure that you're not accepting a transfer over someone that that you should have accepted maybe on your regular waiting list. So there has to be a reason. What is that reason that they're transferring? That's what we're looking at. And just make sure, helpful tip, that whoever did move into that unit is on your waiting list. Okay, we got a question about vacancy due to death. So sometimes that happens and the vacancy is because your resident has passed away. If that's the case, we want to know, or we need to see some kind of documentation to show us what day that tenant died. And there's a couple reasons for that. So one of them is we're looking at your voucher after you've submitted our claim to make sure that everything was reported correctly and any adjustments have been made that need to be made. And so when a tenant passes away, there's a code that you have to use. So we're looking for that on your voucher to make sure it's recorded as a death. And then the other thing that we're looking for is that you have not collected subsidy past the 14 days after that tenant has passed away. So deaths are typically unexpected, and so there's no notification or move out, no notice that you get. And HUD recognizes that and will let you collect subsidy up to 14 days after that date of death. But beyond that, it then falls back on the property. So we need to see that what day that the tenant passed away, because we're making sure that the subsidy collected is the right amount. I'm hoping that answered the question that we had earlier. There are a lot of different documentation to show that date of death that we'll accept. Obituary, memorial flyer, newspaper article. If you can't get one of these three things, then you can go to the family, get a statement from the family, law enforcement, if there was law enforcement that had to show up, death certificate. And if you can't get anything to show what day that resident died, but your staff knows what that date is, we will accept your certification telling us what day that is. But that is after you've tried to provide one of these things first. Questions?
Oops. Here I am, sorry. Yes, so we have one, that's a good one. I think this might be a software, something that a software might do when a tenant is moved from the wait list into the unit. But the question is, if the new tenant has already moved into the unit, they will not show up on our wait list anymore. But we can print a document that shows they are on the wait list and the number. So I think the question is, if owner agents are keeping track of a wait list electronically on their software and not, in a binder maybe, when they move that person on the waiting list into the unit, it takes them off the waiting list. So when they print that waiting list, they're no longer showing up there. So what other documentation would we accept to show that they were on the waiting list?
It's a good question. A lot of the waiting lists we see have a column for either accepted a move-in or moved in on this date. So there may be some settings on your software that you can print out, residents that were on or tenants that were on that waiting list who have accepted a unit. You might just play around with some of those settings and filters when you go to print that waiting list. If you've done that and you still can't print that out, when you submit your special claim, just let us know. Give us the waiting list that you have for everyone that was above that tenant, and then write us a note of some sort so that we know that this is the tenant who moved in, but now that she's in, she doesn't appear on this list. And if we need more than that from you, we'll reach out.
Another question, what if the resident passes away and causes us to have a hazmat team come in? Can we do a special claim on the damages done to the unit?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know that that's ever come up. So I will find out for you. But I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no either. I suppose it would be that what is the cost? Is it just the cost for that team to come in and clean, or I'll do a little research. I just don't know. Great question.
Yeah, and then Hope posted how much it was not a small amount. It was quite.
I can't imagine it if you had a hazmat team come in, it would be small. Now, I will tell you that, and we're coming up to talk about damage claims next, the maximum amount of money you can get on a damage claim is your contract rent for a month. So if your contract rent's $700 and the hazmat team was $1,000, you're not going to get $1,000. So I can tell you that. So let me do a little research for you, Jackie. Will you keep a track of that question so we don't forget to follow up?
And we kind of have one that goes along that same lines, but in regards to bed bugs. So what about the cost to clean out a unit for bed bug treatment due to hoarding?
That's a great question as well. And I unfortunately also don't have an answer for you on that. So I will check into the bed bugs. We have not had that come through. So we'll reach out to our HUD field office and see if they can give us some guidance on if cost of treating bed bugs can be included in a damage claim. So I know that's not helpful right now, but promise we will follow up.
So I flagged you guys, so we'll get that information to you.
Okay.
Anything else? Oh yes, we have one that came in. Sorry. What is the statute of limitation to file? I'm guessing vacancy special claims.
Great question, and you know what? I'm realizing that might have gotten missed earlier on. So you have to submit a vacancy claim within 180 days of the date the unit is ready for occupancy. I'm going to see if I can go back. I'm wondering if I'm missing a slide.
I know it was at the beginning of one of your first slide, maybe.
You know, I've gone through these slides so many times. I think that I had it on here and for some reason it's not now. So great question. Thank you for bringing that up. It was definitely should have been something I mentioned earlier. So the start date of that claim is your date it's ready for occupancy. In box 3 of that HUD form, you have 180 days to send us your claim from that date. So 6 months. And if you send us your claim past the 6-month mark, we're going to deny it immediately. So know your 180-day deadline.
Okay, we have, thank you, Tangi. I knew I had a couple of HUD people on this call, and I've heard your bed bug questions and and hazmat questions. So we're basically going to have pawn you off on your HUD account executive. So for projects incurring extraordinary expenses due to delayed discovery of death that might cause a hazmat team to come in, owners may contact their HUD account executive to find out if they may request release from your replacement reserve or residual reserve accounts to cover those cleanup expenses.
Okay, yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense. So if you do have an extraordinary expense, definitely reach out to your HUD account executive, and if you've got a reserve account then, or a residual receipts account, that can probably be used for that cost. Okay.
Makes sense, yep.
We've got about a half an hour, Jackie, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you have additional questions, we'll get to them at the end. I just want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about damage claims, and then we'll talk about just the KHRC requirements for submission and kind of how we do things when we get your claim. So I want to make sure that we get everybody out of here by 11:30. So
sounds good.
Damage and unpaid rent claims. I mentioned that the maximum amount is your contract rent. In effect at the time your tenant moved out, minus your security deposit. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Again, like vacancy claims, there are a number of required documents that have to be submitted. So here's a list of those items, and we're going to talk about each one of these. And again, even if we get through all of these documents, there may be, depending on your claim, there may be some additional documents that we ask you for or clarification. Okay, so what's included in your damage claim? Unpaid rent claim. Extraordinary repairs or replacements. This is beyond normal wear and tear. So a property owner agent of a multifamily housing unit, there is a cost of doing business. And so some of those routine maintenance, repairs, normal wear and tear from just having a tenant in there is not eligible for a damage claim. The damaged items have to be due to the tenant's negligence. these items cannot have reached their life expectancy. So we'll talk about that a little further on. If an item has reached its expected length of how long it should last, then you're going to have to replace it anyway. So you can't include that in a damage claim. That you can include charges for damages during tenancy that tenant was previously billed for, but we're still unpaid at move out. And then for your unpaid rent, there's rent owed but unpaid at the time of move out, and then other eligible charges due at the time of move out. We don't see a whole lot of these other eligible charges. Not included, or not eligible, I'm sorry, for your claim, labor costs. It's a cost of doing business. Damaged items due to normal wear and tear. Routine maintenance, I've touched on that. So this is the cost of doing business. You have maintenance people that come in, you're going to make ready these units anyway. So these damage claims are designed for anything above the normal wear and tear. It has to be extraordinary repairs or replacements. Damaged items, again, that have reached or exceeded the life expectancy, you're going to have to replace those anyway. Collection agency fees cannot be included, and legal fees cannot be included. Okay, the damage and unpaid rent claims have a different checklist, but we have also included one of these or created one of these for you to use. So I would avoid using the HUD checklist. Sorry, HUD, but ours is better. It includes everything that you would possibly need to submit with your claim. And this is just to ensure that you provide us a complete claim. Everybody hates it when they get a claim and then they hear from us, sorry, it's returned because it's incomplete. So that's why we have these checklists, and they're designed for you. Read through them so that you know exactly what needs to be submitted. Again, 2 required HUD forms. So the first one we have talked about already, and that's the special claims schedule form. That's both for vacancy and damage claims. So even if you have multiple claims on that schedule form, we're going to process them individually, and we're going to give you an approval letter or decision letter separate. And then unpaid rent and damages have its own HUD form that's different. And I'm going to see, I think my link didn't work last time. I don't know what's happening. Okay, let's see if I can pull that on my other screen. Bear with me. I'm sorry, guys. Technology is not on my side today. So one more minute and I'm going to see if I can get this open for us. So I want to talk through this HUD form just a little bit. Okay, so here's your special claims for unpaid rent and damages. You are going to fill out the entire form. And so we're going to touch on each one of these boxes. Again, top information, project name, contract number, the vacated tenant's name and the unit number, and then the date that they moved out. So next, you're going to enter information about money that you've already collected, so your security deposit. And so read closely these forms, see what it's asking for. If you've collected any interest on that security deposit, be sure to enter it here. And then you'll total up the amount of money that you've collected on this form here. Next is going to be your monthly contract rent that was in effect at the time this tenant moved out. So you'll just need to check the date they moved out, when is your contract rent go into effect each year, and put that amount in here. There'll be a little bit of math as you go through this form. So just make sure things are adding up correctly. You've got the right number in the box before. The section 9 through 11 is going to be for unpaid rent claims only. And so if you don't have any unpaid rent that you're going to file a claim for, just skip over this. If you do, then that's where this is going to go. Items or lines 12 through 16 are going to be your damages. So line 13, enter the cost to repair damage. This is the box that we often have to adjust. So I'm going to get into where this number comes from here in just a minute. But I wanted to run through this form real quickly so you could see what this looks like. Again, be sure to sign and date. All right. Tracks reports. Again, another requirement, just like vacancy claims, you need to provide us a tracks report showing the date that that tenant has moved out. We do not need verification of a new tenant moving in. All we care about is when that tenant moved out, and we're going to look at your tracks report to see that. Security deposit requirement. This is the same. We're going to need the same information as we would your vacancy claim. So we're still going to need your original 5/9 from that tenant when they moved into the unit. So be sure to include that, both pages. I highly doubt you're going to have a tenant transferring from the unit that you're filing the damage claim on into another unit. If they've done that much damage, I can't imagine that you're wanting them to move into another unit. So that's usually not an issue. So we'll skip that. Again, with the security deposit collection, same as your vacancy claim. Provide us the ledger, a receipt, or the original lease, showing the amount that you actually collected. So I know I'm kind of going a little bit quicker through these, so my apologies. I do want to make sure I save a little bit more time to talk about how to calculate your damages. So we're going to go through these a little bit quicker than I had planned. The disposition. This is important. You need to make sure that that security deposit disposition includes an itemized list of all the damages and charges to the tenant at the move out. If you have a separate piece of paper that goes along with that list, fine. We need an itemized list of everything that the tenant was charged and details. So what it was that was damaged, how much are they getting charged for? Vacancy Reconditioning Log. This one doesn't carry as much weight. However, this is used to determine if it was submitted to us within the required timeline, which is the 180 days from the date that that unit was ready to rent. So that's why this reconditioning log must be included in damage claims, because we want to see the date that it was ready to go, and then we're going to compare that to the date you sent us the claim. And so 180 days cannot elapse. Okay, any questions up until that? A lot of that information is the same as your vacancy.
Yes, there we go. We have a couple questions. There's some general ones I'm going to save to the end, but the ones that pertain to some of the damage claim information. We did get, can you file a claim for unpaid rent and damages and then file a separate vacancy claim on the same unit?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. Good. And then there's a couple, like I said, general questions from previous slides that we're gonna catch at the end, so we can keep going.
All right. Okay, so here's some requirements on damage claims that are not part of your vacancy claims. So you have to send a letter to your tenant. It has to be sent certified. If it's not, you can't file a claim, or if you do, it's going to be denied. So this letter must be sent to the tenant, and it must include all of these things: details of the unpaid rent or the damages, any other charges that were due under the lease, the disposition of the security deposit. These kind of three go hand in hand. You have to demand payment. You have to advise them that failure to pay will result in hiring a collection agency. And then a notice to the tenant that they have a right to discuss the charges with the owner agent. This letter has to go out to the tenant before you file the claim. And then you have to show us that you actually did that. So we need proof that you sent this letter to the tenant certified. So here's a couple of examples that we've received that show that this has been sent certified. So here's the certified, just a couple of examples there, hopefully that you can see those on my screen. Okay, and then assuming that you don't get any payment from that tenant after you've sent them the certified letter demanding payment, sent it to collections, we're assuming that you have not received anything from that tenant. So here's your collection agency engagement letter and them acknowledging that they have received your request to collect this debt. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of information that had to be redacted on this, but hopefully you get the general idea. Once you engage a collection agency, they're gonna start trying to collect this debt. And so you need to provide us a letter from the collection agency showing that they're now trying to collect this debt. Questions on either of those two items?
Yes. Do we have to engage a collection agency?
Yes, you do.
That's a good question. What if we are our own collection agency?
If you are I don't know. I think
I
that
think there's a different, yeah.
there is a very specific definition of a collection agency, and if you, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what that is, but if you meet that definition, then sure. But if it's just someone in the office that's making calls to try to get money
To
from your
follow
tenant,
up.
that does not count. So if you're questioning whether or not you are a collection agency, reach out to me afterwards and we can talk about that.
Yeah, there might be a difference if you're able to actually file something and it's on their credit and things like that, but we'd have to talk to you separately about that. What is the timeline for sending the certified letter to the past tenant, or is there one?
As far as your special claim is concerned, I don't have a timeline for you. So it's really how quickly do you want to submit this claim to us? Because there's things you got to do before you submit it to us. You have to submit it to us within 180 days of that unit ready to go again. So just keep that in mind. You can, if you're ready to go and send them that certified letter and start your collections, do it. But I'm not looking to see when you did it. I'm just looking to make sure you've done it and then that you've submitted your claim to us within 180 days of the make ready date. Okay.
That's it.
Nope. Okay,
Yep,
I'm going to keep
good.
going. We've got 10 minutes. So I am going to mention if we get to 11:30, I'm going to keep going. I'll pause for a minute, try to take any final questions, but if I don't get through all the slides, I will keep going. So I do apologize. This actually took a lot longer than I had expected, longer than I planned out. So apologies for that. And if you want to hang on, I am going to finish the slide. We're very close, but I'm worried I won't be 100% done by 11:30. All right, supporting documents. Damage claims require a lot more supporting documents. So there are several of these that need to be included in your claim. We talked a little bit about the itemized list. You have to provide an itemized list of charges to your tenant, and we use this to verify what you're charging that tenant. Second, we need your move-in and move-out inspection report. So we're using this for a couple of reasons. We're looking at the extent of the damaged items, so we can compare that item to when the tenant moved in and what is the condition of it when they moved out. That is what that report is for. So make sure it's completed and it's completed in full. We're also using that report to look at the age of items. Sometimes those reports will say this was brand new at move-in. So we're looking at that as well. And then we need invoices or receipts for any repairs or replacements that you've done. And this is to verify the actual cost that you incurred. So we're looking at both the actual cost of something and then what you're charging the tenant for. Pictures. We need to see the damage. We're not just going to take your word for it that this door was broken. Take a picture of it, label it, bedroom door, unit 101. Send it to us. We prefer colored pictures, but I know that that's a little bit more difficult for you. So it is definitely not a requirement, but if you have the option of providing colored pictures or black and white, please choose colored. But either way, pictures, we need to see what the damage is, and we need to be able to not question it. So when you send us a picture, we're looking, as soon as we look at it, we want to make sure, be able to tell that's broken, and it's labeled as bedroom door. Okay, this is probably the most anticipated document in the damage section of this training. So there are 2 life expectancy charts. This one here on my screen we've created this form, and we've created it for you to make these submissions much easier. The second one is also called a life expectancy chart. This is the HUD Appendix 5D out of the Special Claim Processing book. This form does not include in everything that could possibly be damaged, but it includes several items on here. You have to use this form as reference when you are estimating the life expectancy of a damaged item. If that item is not on this list, then you're going to just use your best judgment and estimate how long do you think that that item is expected to live or last. Go back. This is where you're going to enter all of this information that we've talked about. And I'm going to open this up separately and go through one by one. And this is where we get the most, I think, confusion. And how did you calculate? How are you determining how much damage claim that we can ask for? I think I would say 90%, if not more than 90% of the damage claims we receive are adjusted. This form is, I think we've had this now for about a year. We have revised it once, and so hopefully it's a little bit easier to follow. This is required. You have to submit this form with your claim, and you have to fill it out. And it also has to match everything else that you've submitted to us. So I know it sounds like we're kind of real sticklers on these damage claims, and it's because we are. Honestly, there's just a lot that you have to prove to us that this was beyond normal wear and tear. All right, so let's jump right into this. So I'm going to go through the example that I have included on this form. Column 1, what is the item that's damaged? My example, there's a door. Okay, column 2. Read the question here at the top. Does the damage exceed normal wear and tear? And this is going to be a yes or no question. After you read the question, please look at the description. So you have to include a labeled photo, clearly identifying the damage and the location of the item. The unit number must be written or typed onto the photo. So in my example, this door damage exceeds normal wear and tear, and I'm going to show you in a picture. Column 3, how old is that door? Provide the move-in, move-out inspection report or a previous receipt showing the unit number and when that item was replaced. So on your move-in, move-out inspection report, when you get to, we'll say this is in the bedroom, you get to the bedroom. Maybe that door was replaced at the time that tenant moved in. I don't know, or maybe not. But on there, you can tell us how old is that item. And in this case, in this example, that door has been there for 10 years. What is the life expectancy of the damaged item? How long should a door in a bedroom in a multifamily unit last? This is where this form is going to come into play. Whatever your item is, look to see if it's on here. It's not on here. So you are going to have, you're going to have to estimate the life expectancy below. In our example, this bedroom door should last 15 years. So that's the number I've put on here. How many years are remaining in the damaged item's life expectancy? Subtract the item's age from the life expectancy to equal the remaining years. So in the example, that door is supposed to last 15 years. It's already 10 years old. How much time is left? How much life does that door have left in it? 5 years. Okay. Next, what is the actual cost to repair or to replace that door? This is where your invoices or your receipts are going to come in. So did you replace that door or did you repair the door? Show us. How much did it cost you to do that? And in this case, it cost $200. We're going to look at those invoices and receipts to see that. The next one is, how much did you charge the tenant for the damage to that door? This is where the itemized list of damages sent to the tenant by your certified mail comes into play. We're going to look to see how much did you charge that tenant. So in this case, you charged the tenant $225. Last, this is where you're going to calculate how much money you can ask for in your claim. To calculate the amount of damages HUD will pay, you're going to use the following formula. The lesser of column 6 or 7, So 6, 7, which one's less? $200 was the actual cost to repair. Okay, and then you're going to take that divided by column 4, which is your estimated life expectancy. And in this case is 15 years. So I'm taking $200 divided by 15. And then I'm going to multiply that by column 5, which is the remaining amount of years left in that life expectancy. So in this case, it's 5. So after I do that math, my end calculation is $66.66. This is how much money you can ask for on your damage claim. And you're going to do that with every damaged item. This chart has to be filled out. And then everything up here, so if you have a window or blinds on here, we're going to go back and look at the photos, the move-in, move-out inspection report, your receipts, your itemized list. So make sure it's clear and that you've included all of that information. Sorry, one more thing. Back to this life expectancy chart that is in the HUD book. So look here first to see if the item that's damaged is included on here. So for example, a hot water heater is expected to last for 10 years. Plush carpeting is expected to last 5 years in a family property and 7 in an elderly property. And you'll just go through this list to see if your item is on there. If it's not, that's where you're going to estimate the life expectancy. Okay. Questions about that? I do have several slides left before Jackie, you ask those questions. And those slides are going to be talking about pro quorum, how to name your special claim, where to upload it, how to request payment, what happens when we get an incomplete claim, and what do you have to do. So for those of you that are coming here to the end of our scheduled time and you have to move on, thank you very much for joining, but please know I'm going to continue and talk about some of those other internal submission guidelines.
I'm going to make kind of an executive decision since we are kind of getting close to the end. We get a report after the presentation is over from GoToWebinar with all the questions and then who asked it and their email address. So rather than taking away from the rest of the presentation, if you've asked a question, we're going to get back to you in an email form, and then we'll just kind of wrap up the presentation. So keep asking your questions in the question box because we'll email you since we'll have that report after, but we'll just do one last quick pro quorum.
Do you want to take any questions right now?
We have several.
I know. So, that's what, yeah. And I think you decide what you think is best, Jackie, but these damage claims can be confusing. And so I know if one person has that question, somebody else probably does too. Do you want to try to answer a couple now?
We have several just about like, what if you're unsure of the age of the damaged item? What if the previous property manager has no documentation of how much that item was?
You're going to have to estimate it. So there's a lot of that judgment call. So there's nothing black and white other than that one HUD appendix that has some random items on there. You're just going to use your judgment. Being in the business, maybe ask somebody else, estimate it. If we get that information from you, if you show a door and you say it's supposed to last 6 months, probably not. We're going to also use our judgment. So just use your judgment. If we question what you tell us, we'll reach out.
What if the tenant pays you for the damage after you receive the special claim?
Then you have to return the special claim money. And it's going to fall just on the honor system, I think. Yeah. So yes, if you receive money from the tenant after you filed and received damage claim money, you will have to report that to us, and then the adjustment on your voucher will be made.
Can you repeat this for everybody? The max that an owner agent can receive for a damage claim
is your contract rent at the time of move out. So if your tenant moved out September 1st, look at your rent schedule to see what rent was in effect at that time. and that's the maximum. Your HUD form, actually I think I have it open here, is going to do that calculation for you. So contract rent at the time of move out, excuse me, right here. And then as you're entering, it should do some calculations for you.
We have a couple like general questions too that are not necessarily about damage claims, but like for transferring units and.
Okay, those I might hold. So
Okay.
if you don't have any other damage questions, Jackie, if you all have to take off and finish the rest of your day, we completely understand. I do sincerely apologize. This was a lot of information, and
We had a lot of
I
good
didn't
questions.
use. We did. I just didn't use good judgment in determining how long this was going to take. So I'm going to finish quickly talking about our internal kind of processing and submission. If you're unsure or if you have to go, but you still want to see all of that, this is going to be recorded. Or reach out to me, send me an email or a post, and I can call you and tell you what you missed.
Yes,
So
I'll just say a couple things since people are logging off before you move on. Well, first, thank you for your time and attention today and your great questions. But as Sarah said, yes, technology is allowing us to record this today, so that should be on our website and our YouTube channel within the next 10 to 14 days if you've missed the second part. And then be on the lookout for our next training in our mini series. That's going to be on run adjustments, probably mid-November. So, but those of you can stay with us, though, I'll repeat that information at the end just in case.
Okay, so a couple of internal guidelines, submission guidelines. So we have a naming format that we like to use. We like you to use it, and that applies to everything that is uploaded into Procorum. New special claims, here's just an example for you. PBCA, your property name, are the first things in that file name. The date is going to refer to the date you upload it. So if you upload it in this example on August 13th, 2020, no spaces, no dashes, no periods, just put all the numbers next to each other in date form. And then you're going to put the unit number and the tenant's last name. That's how all special claims will be named. Resubmitted claims, same idea, but you're going to put resubmit or additional information out to the side. Appealed claims, same, but it will say appeal at the end of the file name. All files need to be in PDF format and uploaded individually. And we touched on that earlier. Okay, in Procorum, you're going to see a special claim folder in Procorum. New special claims need to be uploaded to Procorum, not emailed, and they need to be loose into the special claim folder for that current year. So everyone is going to have a 2021 folder for special claims. You're going to get into that 2021 folder and you're going to upload. You are not going to click on processed or completed. The new claims do not go in either of those folders. Once we've processed your claim, we will move that original claim submission into the processed originals. That's kind of what that folder name means. We've processed the original claim. You'll never need to get into there unless you want to go see at some point what you uploaded to us before. The completed folder. We are going to upload your completed claim into this folder. This is where you will go and download the either approved, adjusted, or denied claim. This is just a snip of what Procorum looks like. So special claims, in my example, I pulled a work center with 2019, but you'll go to the one for 2021. You have a completed folder, processed originals folder, and then you have your new claims. And that's what I mean by loose outside this folder. Complete claims, they have to be received within 180 calendar days from the date the unit is ready for occupancy. We've talked about that. A complete claim is going to include all required forms, documentation, signature, and dates. Once you submit the claim to us, we have 30 days to look at it, to process it. The ones who submit regularly, you can see we're running about 10 to 14 days out. So that's pretty good for us, knock on wood. Hopefully I didn't jinx ourselves. So you can expect to receive an answer on your special claim before 30 days. But please know that if we get to a point where we're not, spitting them back out as fast as we have been, we do have 30 days to take a look at those. But once we do and we process it, you're going to get a letter in the completed folder. Helpful tip is to submit your claim at least 60 days before the 180-day deadline. Don't push it. Don't wait to as you get closer to that 180-day deadline. The reason for that is you don't want to get to a point where you send it to us and we determine it's incomplete. Then we have to get it back to you. You're going to have some time to return it to us as complete, but if you return that claim to us and we're behind, we have another 30 days to look at it. And so potentially we might not even be able to get you an answer until 60. So don't wait too close to that 180 day. Submit it at least 60 days. And I suggest as soon as that you fill the vacancy or as soon as your 60-day cap is up, send it to us. Incomplete claims. So I know some of you have regularly submitted claims, so you know this process. If we look at your claim and determine that it's incomplete, and an incomplete claim could be for a variety of reasons, missing documentation, missing signatures, missing dates, missing reports, missing reason why it took longer than 10 days to turn the unit over. If any of that is missing, we stop our processing and we're going to return it to you. So we will create a post in Procorum, and that's going to tell you why it's incomplete. We're going to tell you how to resubmit it, and then the date that it has to be returned to us. That date is very important. If it does not get returned to us, or you don't answer either like our question as far as maybe clarification, unfortunately, we are going to deny that claim. So pay attention to that date we give you. We will give you 30 days or the 180-day deadline. So we're going to check that on our end. So let's say we return a claim to you on the 1st of the month. We will give you 30 days to give it back to us. However, if your 180-day deadline falls on the 15th of the month, that's the deadline that you have to return the claim to us. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, after we've processed your claim, we will return that claim to you with a decision letter, which looks like this, and both the HUD forms. Those HUD forms at the very bottom next to your signature will have one of our staff signatures and a check mark on whether it was approved, adjusted, or denied. These letters are very important. So it's going to tell you if your claim was approved. If it was approved, then the amount you requested is what we've approved. If it's adjusted, it's an approved claim, but the dollar amount has changed. If it's a denied claim, then there will be zero money. Your claim number is on these letters. And we've highlighted it in red. This claim number is associated with each unit. And so we have this table at the bottom of these letters to give you all of that information. The next thing that is very important is the submit to EPS date by. And in this case, this is 12/23/21. This is the date, your deadline to submit this claim on your voucher. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Appealed claims. You are only allowed to appeal a claim if it was a complete claim that was denied or adjusted. So if we deny a claim because you didn't send it to us within the right time frame, or if it was incomplete, unfortunately you cannot appeal it. But if we denied or adjusted a complete submission, you can submit an appeal, and you have to do that within 30 days of the letter that we send you notifying you of that decision. If you have more questions on appeal, I can talk about that later. Requesting payment. So you have 90 days to get this on your voucher. The letter and the 2 HUD forms signed by us must be submitted to EPS with your payment on your voucher. If you try to ask for this payment after that date, you're not going to get paid on it. If you miss that date, you're going to get a letter uploaded to Procorum letting you know, hey, we've done a QA check and it didn't look like you, or you have not submitted this claim on your voucher within 90 days. Unfortunately, you've missed out on that money. And that's really sad. We've had to do that many times. And it's just money that is sitting there and nobody gets. So request your payment on an approved claim on your next voucher. That way there's no question is if you're going to miss that 90-day. A lot of references and forms that are available for you. HUD has the Special Claim Processing Guide. Yes, the last time it was put out was June 2006. Yes, that's a long time ago. But that's all we have available to us. There are some frequently asked questions. These are both available on the HUD website, hud.gov. We also have, as I've mentioned throughout the training, lots of documents that we've put together for you. I know this says that they're available on our website, so it's a little bit of a fib at this moment. They will be available on our website. I promise. They're working to get those uploaded very soon. So hopefully in the next couple of days, all of these will be available on our website, with the exception of this video. I think that takes them a little bit longer. One thing that I didn't really mention, but we talked about, is the Special Claim Submission and Processing Quick Guide. That is another handout that you have, and a lot of the information in that handout we talked about individually. So this is just kind of a lot of that information in one spot. Naming and Procorum, a lot of the things that I'm going over right now. So very good reference for you to keep on hand. Okay, I know I went through that very fast. I'm just trying to be mindful of your time. We're all busy. We have lots of things to do. So if there are any final questions, I'm happy to stay on for as long as needed until all the questions are answered. Thank you for joining us. I'm hoping you got something out of this, whether you're a veteran special claim, submitter, or if you've never done it before. So I'm hoping that you've gotten something out of this. If there are any questions, that I'm not able to answer at this time, and you can see the finance staff is coming back on. So we've got Wasini and Liz and Cole. Please reach out to us at any time. They are all experts on this, so they can answer your questions. We're here at any time. So if it's not today or tomorrow, next week, anytime, please reach out with questions. But I'll stay on and answer anything that we have for now.
Yeah, let me did a couple that are good ones that I wanted that everyone might be helpful to know. Again, we want to just confirm how the 180 days is counted.
Okay.
Does it? Yeah. Go through that.
Let's see if I can find my slide. I had an example on, actually we're going to use this. Okay, so your 180-day deadline, the start of from when that starts is the day that unit is ready for occupancy. So that's going to be on this vacancy reconditioning log, the day at the very bottom. So we've talked about how to calculate that day. It has to be the day after everything was done in the unit, final walkthroughs, approvals. That is the day, the start of your claim submission period. The end is 180 days. So you're going to look on box 3 of your HUD form right here. So the date, unit ready for occupancy, right there. So let's say, for example, that is today. So September 23rd, 2021 is the date that unit was ready for occupancy. We're going to calculate 180 days from there, and that's how long you have to send us your claim.
Perfect. And yeah, and usually most of the owner agents that we work with, they have software that will calculate this for you. So because there was questions if it counts the submission day. No, it starts from the day the unit has been made ready. Are there any exceptions to that 180-day filing date for, say, a management company that's taken over a few properties where they haven't done claims in over a year?
Yeah, we can't make that exception at Kansas Housing, but we will certainly make that request on your behalf to HUD. So that is a case by case. I'm going to say most of the time there are no exceptions. However, if you want to send us your claim, couple of things. If you are outside of that 180-day deadline, if you want us to ask for an exception, we will, but you have to make sure that you send us a complete claim. So don't send us an incomplete claim and ask us to ask for an exception. So send us a complete claim, and I'm happy to help you make sure it's complete. Send us a very detailed reason why you're submitting this claim beyond that 180-day deadline, because that's what HUD's going to look at. So I'm happy to request that on your behalf, but it's just up to your HUD account executive and then the circumstances that caused the delay.
And with the damage claims, we had a coworker that had a good point. If you're unsure and you have to know where to start about the, the life expectancy of an item that's not on HUD's list, Google search is our friend. It's maybe a good spot to start. So that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
And then another good question, because I know we talked about this before this training, for a tenant who's transferring, some owner agents have it in their management policy that the owner agent will refund the deposit for the original unit, since it's a security deposit usually is with the unit rather than with the tenant, and they charge the new deposit based on the tenant's TTP of the new unit. How can they show proof that that has been done?
Okay. Great question. That doesn't come up very often. And so that's the reason why it wasn't included in this webinar. So I wondered if someone would ask that. We see every claim that we get with a transfer that security deposit has transferred with the tenant from the old unit to the new unit. And so we're looking at that original move-in 5-9 to see if what was originally collected was correct. If you have a unit transfer and you refund that security deposit to that tenant before you transfer them into the new unit, we don't need your original move-in because you're going to be using whatever they're at right now to calculate their TTP and to process that new certification. Send us the new one that you're calculating the new security deposit with, but you have to send us the disposition from that original move-in. So we need to see that you've returned it to them, and then we need to see that you've collected it again. So we're just following the path of the security deposit. So if you're unsure, just think about it that way. We want to see that security deposit from start to finish. What happened to it? Did it just go with the tenant into the different units? Did you turn it back? Did you give it back to them and then collect it again? Just show us that path.
And then there was a clarification question. Isn't the max amount you are allowed to collect for a damage claim the current contract rent minus the security deposit that was collected?
Yes, and I think I mentioned that the first time, and then when asked again, I said the contract rent. So you are absolutely correct. It's the contract rent minus your security deposit. And then I want to add one more thing to that. If you have received any type of payment from that tenant, that's also going to reduce your claim. So let's say it's $1,000 that you're asking for. We reduce it by your security deposit, but then that tenant gave you $100. So we'll account for that as well. You have to tell us that, but that will come into play.
And then our last question that I thought was good. What if the management policy allows transfer prior to pulling a new applicant for a unit from the waiting list?
Prior to just pulling someone from your regular waiting list?
So for we require why the unit or why the person transferred, and we get the waiting list to make sure that someone wasn't. We just probably would need to see that was your policy. So some owner agents have a policy where they will allow internal transfers before going to their wait list, and so I think we would just need to see that.
Yeah, that's fine
when we process those.
And you can use, and you know, just let us know that when you submit your claim. This is
Yeah.
part of our policies
Yep.
that we can
That
select
makes it
a
easy.
transfer. Mhm.
Okay, I think that's everything. Besides a bunch of thank you, Sarah's, and thank you for the training, excellent informative training, all of those nice comments. Thank you for that. Again, if you haven't logged off yet, I know we've lost some, but we are going to be sending out certificates. GoToWebinar automatically generates training certificates for those who have registered. So if, like I said, you're sitting on with a friend or you didn't personally register and you're just watching from your boss's or coworker's computer, you won't get one. But if you did, you'll get a generated certificate in the next couple hours. And then, of course, I did want to let everyone know that we will have another training. Sarah will host another one that will be happening mid-November on rent adjustments. And so be looking out for that to be able to register for that new one. Again, the PowerPoint slides, I won't be able to share those, but we are recording this and we will be posting them on our website very shortly. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you very much.
Yes,
thanks for the good questions too.
Thanks for hanging on 20 minutes beyond time. Appreciate that. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Yep. Bye.